Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer who's seen it all, that is me, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I'm your host, Jeff Pearlman. I want to start this episode by saying, and I really mean this, the vast majority of athletes I've dealt with through the years have been wonderful and lovely. I think about people like Gerald Williams and Torrey Hunter and Mike Sweeney and Jason Schmidt and Sal Fasano and Brian Johnson and Sean Green and a million great athletes, right? A million great athletes. And the truth of the matter is, the assholes among athletes tend to stand out. Number one, because assholes always stand out, because in society, I think most people want to be nice. And number two, because we like asshole stories. So when I find myself telling stories about sports, I often gravitate to John Rocker, maybe the biggest asshole who's ever lived. Barry Bonds, who delighted in being an asshole to people. Jeff Kent, his teammate, who certainly had asshole tendencies. There have been many assholes in sports, and people like asshole stories. However, I feel like in the history of this show, this young show, I have failed to really embrace the full assholeness of a man who has to be, in the annals of sports history, maybe the greatest asshole we've ever dealt with. And I want to say before I get super into this, as we speak, the asshole I'm about to delve into is in his 70s. He lives a private life, and he's probably no longer an asshole. As Sean Green, the former Dodger, said to me once, we get a lot nicer once we retire. And I do believe that. I believe Barry Bonds is not as big of a jerk as he used to be. I believe, well, John Rocker most certainly is. But otherwise, most people are not. So I just want to say, before I get into this, that the biggest asshole of an athlete may now love kittens and rainbows and sprinkles. The guy I'm talking about is former Major League slugger Dave Kingman. And if you know baseball at all, especially 70s and 80s baseball, you know Dave Kingman as the 6'6" slugger, the home run hitter, 442 lifetime homers, 1,210 lifetime RBIs, a scary man to have at bat, a 3-time All-Star, nicknamed Kong, nicknamed King Kong, nicknamed Sky King. He had long arms, he had a big bat, he had a vicious swing, but he was also, with no ambiguity, one of the great assholes in baseball history. And today, we are going to delve into the career, the life, and the unique asshole behavior of one Dave Kong Kingman. So my first book was a biography of the 1986 New York Mets called The Bad Guys Won. And when I was researching that book, you know, when you write a book, you don't just talk about the team itself, you go into the background and the making of. And in the early to mid 1980s, one of the Mets stars, but he kind of sucked, but he was one of their better players because they didn't have much, was Dave Kingman. And Dave Kingman was a popular player with the Mets because he was big and his nickname was Kong and he had a big bat and he had a cool swing and sometimes he had a pretty dope mustache. But the truth of the matter is Kingman was trash. And when I mean trash, I don't even mean as a player. I mean, he was a guy, and this is a literal, true story of something he used to do. If a kid had a baseball and he was behind the railing, he would ask Dave Kingman for an autograph. This happened at spring training on multiple occasions. And Dave Kingman would say, yeah, toss me the ball, ask him for an autograph. And the kid would toss Dave Kingman the ball, and Dave Kingman would let the ball fall and he'd walk away. Like, he was that level of dick. And I don't think people are always that big of a dick. Like, I don't think you're born a dick. I think you learn to be a dick or an asshole. And Dave Kingman was born in 1948 in Oregon. His dad worked for United Airlines. They moved around a lot. He winds up in Mount Prospect, Illinois, and he's a super duper star, 3-sport star at Prospect High School in Illinois. And he's great at football, he's great at basketball, and he's really great at baseball. In fact, if you go back and look at the old articles, you find one piece after another, starting when Kingman was like 13 years old, of this beast on the mound. This kid who struck out 15 in a game, threw a no-hitter, did this, did that, just like unbelievable. And Kingman winds up at USC on a full baseball scholarship. And he actually goes there as a pitcher, but after his freshman year, he switched full-time to defense. He plays first, he plays third. They play him a little in the outfield. And by his senior year in 1970, Dave Kingman is arguably the best college baseball player in America. He's just a beast of a slugger, insane power, just bat speed, everything you want. And he's drafted by the San Francisco Giants in 1970. And Kingman only spends 1 year in the minor leagues. He plays for Phoenix. He's really, really good in the minor leagues. And in 1971, he's promoted to the Giants. And in his second game in San Francisco, he pinch hits for Willie McCovey, hits a grand slam. Hero, 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 all this stuff. Dave Kingman, badass Dave Kingman's going to be great. And his 3 years in San Francisco, Dave Kingman is a very good, promising young player. 1971, he only plays in 41 games, but he has 6 homers, 24 RBIs. 72, 29 homers, 83 RBIs. 73, 24 homers and 55 RBIs. And 74, 18 homers and 55 RBIs. The problems are multiple, however. Number one, 1972, 140 strikeouts. 73, 122 strikeouts. 74, 125 strikeouts. Even worse, he's an atrociously bad defensive player. Dave Kingman views himself as a third baseman, but to watch him at third base is to watch a pig in mud smoking crack. Like, he can't play third base. He tries first base. To watch Dave Kingman at first base is to watch a pig in mud smoking crack. Dave Kingman in the outfield is a pig in mud smoking crack. The effort sucks. The athleticism sucks. Balls clang off his glove. He can't scoop balls out of the dirt. His arm is okay, but not great for an infielder. He's just bad. And in 1975, or heading into the 75 season, Dave Kingman, in the winter back in the day, a lot of players made money doing like speaking tours. So you're Dave Kingman, you speak at the Rotary Club. You're Dave Kingman and you go to the Chamber of Commerce. You go to a Cub Scout meeting. All Dave Kingman does is complain about the San Francisco Giants. Charlie Fox is a manager. Kingman says, that guy didn't like me and I hated him. He says he wants to switch positions. He says he doesn't want to be here anymore. Just trade me, trade me, trade me, trade me. And finally, leading into the 1975 season, Dave Kingman is sent to the New York Mets for $150,000. Like, that's it. $150,000. You can have Dave Kingman, who just a couple years ago was the Giants' biggest prospect. Now it's like, get this guy out of here. And as soon as he arrives in New York, Kingman sucks. There was a UPI story after he arrived in New York, and it said the Giants feared the Mets might have second thoughts about getting Kingman. And who could blame them? Because the Giants seemed so anxious to unload the moody and sometimes petulant slugger who never lived up to his potential after 3 frustrating years. And the truth of the matter is, the Dave Kingman who arrived in New York with the Mets, who talked about, oh, this is great, a fresh start with the Mets, he was just moody, and he was a pain in the ass. And one of his future teammates, the catcher John Stearns, who recently passed, said, Dave Kingman has the personality of a tree trunk. And he spends 1975 with the Mets, 36 home runs, 88 RBIs, 153 strikeouts. 1976, 37 home runs, 86 RBIs, 135 strikeouts. And in this age of pre-advanced metrics, people are like, wow, this guy, he's got power. Dave Kingman, he's got power. But he literally strikes out 10 times for every home run across the scope of his career. He's just a strikeout machine who can't play defense. And he's a pain in the ass. 1977, to me, is Dave Kingman at his most remarkable. Kingman starts the year with the Mets, okay? And he's hitting 209 with 9 home runs when on June 15th, 1977, as part of what is called the Midnight Massacre, when the Mets traded Tom Seaver to the Reds, Dave Kingman is sent to the San Diego Padres for Paul Siebert and Bobby Valentine, which is basically like getting trash and more trash. Kingman plays briefly for the Padres. He's released. He's put on waivers. He's signed by the Angels. For the Angels, he plays a whopping, it's actually amazing this, in 10 games, hits 194 with 2 home runs. He then is traded to the New York Yankees, right? He goes to the Yankees, and Thomas Boswell, the great Washington Post columnist, wrote, give George Steinbrenner, the Yankee owner, some credit. He figured out what he needs to make his team complete. An unsigned, reclusive, discontented 6'6" Greta Garbo and Spikes, who hits 600-foot home runs and strikes out 13% of the time. Kingman with the Yankees, 250, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs. So in 1977, Dave Kingman literally plays for 4 teams. And he's just a fucking monstrosity of a player. And there's this moment that I think is actually remarkable, where Ted Williams, the legendary Boston Red Sox, the man who knows more about hitting than anyone else, watches Dave Kingman swing on TV and says to a friend, tell Dave I'd really like to talk to him. I have some advice about swinging. About hitting, excuse me. And Ted Williams was the last Major League Baseball player to hit 400. So if Ted Williams calls, it doesn't matter who you are, you say yes. Well, Ted Williams reaches out to Dave Kingman, and Dave Kingman says, nah, I'm good, and never returns the call. And you think, wow, this is pretty much the low of the low. 4 teams don't want you. Your reputation is shit. Nobody in baseball likes you. You've been literally compared to a tree trunk in personality. You were once a hot prospect, and now you're shit. And amazingly, it actually got much, much worse. So despite everything everyone knew about Dave Kingman, and despite playing for 4 teams in one season, again, Mets, Padres, Angels, Yankees, and sort of kind of sucking with all of them, after the 77 season, Dave Kingman signs with the Chicago Cubs. And in a way, during a really bad era of Cubs baseball, Dave Kingman was one of the stars. In 1978 with Chicago, the guy hits 28 home runs, 79 RBIs in an injury-plagued year. 1979, he goes 48 home runs, leading Major League Baseball, 115 RBIs. He's an all-star. But I have to say, my favorite Cubs season for Dave Kingman is 1980. And if you look at the stats, Dave Kingman was an all-star yet again. He had 3 seasons as an all-star. He was hurt a lot. He had 18 home runs, 57 RBIs, batted .278, which for him was amazing. But Dave Kingman did some stuff in 1980 that I just love, love, love. The way I love when you get like poison ivy on your balls. Like, it's not a good thing, but it's weirdly something, a story to tell later on. Okay. Number 1, Dave Kingman hates the media. He has made it clear he hates the media from day one. He always hates the media. He thinks they're intrusive. He thinks they're annoying. He thinks they need to mind their own business. He thinks they're always out for shit on him. And he's not even totally wrong. Like, this is what we do. We are annoying, and we are interested, and we are intrigued, and we are going to ask you a lot of questions. But there's in spring training 1980, there's a sports writer for the Arlington Heights Herald named Don Frisk. And one day, Dave Kingman comes up behind Don and dumps a bucket of ice water on his head. And it's just something you don't do. And Kingman later was like, I was just being funny. But it's like, nah, man, that's not fucking funny. And David Israel, who is a great columnist for the Chicago Tribune, wrote at the time, Kingman is not wanted. He does not belong here. Unless someone can prove that Kingman got lost on the way home from the nursery school one afternoon and wound up playing Major League Baseball, he has run out of acceptable excuses for his boorish, childish behaviors. And it was just a dick move, but it was so Dave Kingman, right? He just made writers miserable, their lives miserable, everything miserable. And later that year, in one of the greatest moments of dickery of all time, the Chicago Cubs decide they're going to have Dave Kingman t-shirt day. And every fan who comes out to Wrigley Field gets a Dave Kingman t-shirt. Now, this is a big deal. Not that many players get t-shirt days named after him. In fact, I can't think of any players I covered who literally had t-shirt days. So at the time, Dave Kingman is on the disabled list with a right shoulder injury. And on that day, he decides to skip his own t-shirt day because he made arrangements to make an appearance for an automobile dealer. So he goes to the dealership. Meanwhile, Wrigley Field is packed for Dave Kingman t-shirt day, and there's no Dave Kingman. He literally is not there. And after Kingman leaves the Cubs in 1981 and returns to the New York Mets, a team that just in some, knife to the skull way decides to bring him back, a Cubs outfielder named Scott Thompson says, he ruined this club. And he wasn't exaggerating. Like, Dave Kingman was poison. He was just ruinous. And he goes to the Mets, and he's there in 1981, 82, and 83. And, he's Dave Kingman. 81, 22 home runs, 59 RBIs, 105 strikeouts. 83, 37 home runs, leads the NL. 99 RBIs, 156 strikeouts. One year when he returns to the Mets, he reports to spring training and actually hands out these silver pens, each one for every member of the media, and declares he's making peace with them. And if you take these pens and you write nice about me, I'll be nice to you guys. But he's not. He can't do it. He is incapable. And ultimately, Kingman is replaced by Keith Hernandez in one of the greatest upgrades in the history of Major League Baseball. And by 1984, Dave Kingman finds himself with the Oakland A's. And this is actually a really good development for Dave Kingman because for the first time, he gets to be a designated hitter. And Dave Kingman, of all the men on the planet, was made to be a DH. Again, no glove to speak of, no effort in the field to speak of, almost acted as if being in the field was an inconvenience for him. And he joins the Oakland A's, and he's really excited. He signs with them as a free agent, and on December 19th, 1984. And Dave Kingman with the Oakland A's puts up numbers. This is the early Bash Brothers era, pre-Jose Canseco arriving, but right around this time when we're getting into the A's being bashers. Dave Kingman, 1984, 35 home runs, 118 RBIs. Next year, 30 home runs, 91 RBIs. 1986, 35 RBIs, 94 RBIs. And you might think, wow, what an amazing way for Dave Kingman to wrap up his career. He's a DH. He's in California. He's playing for the A's. He's hitting dingers. This all seems really good. But because Dave Kingman was, as I've said 17 times, the biggest asshole in baseball history, before he left the game, he had to commit one of the top 5 biggest asshole acts in the game's modern history. So back in the late 1970s and early 1980s, you had more and more women beat writers entering the field of Major League Baseball. And it was not easy at all. I always think of this story. There's a writer named Paula Smith who was covering the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Pirates had an outfielder named Dave Parker, who wound up later in his life being a wonderful, wonderful guy and died, I think, a year ago. But one day, Paula Smith had to interview Dave Parker, and she walked up to Parker at his locker, and Dave Parker was completely naked. And Paula Smith asked a question, and Dave Parker said something like, "Why don't you suck this?" And Paula Smith replied, "I would if I could find out under all that fat." And that was the kind of shit that women writers back in the day had to deal with from athletes. This was the age where men were men and women were in the kitchen, and how dare you be here? And this is our space. And it sucked. Like, talk to any woman, Major League Baseball beat writer from back in the day, and certainly even now to a certain degree, and you have horror stories. You have horror stories of men being inappropriate. You have horror stories of men being assholes. You have horror stories of the pointing to the penis, pointing to the genitalia, all that stuff. Well, it's June 24th, 1986, and the Oakland A's are in Kansas City to play the Royals. And the Oakland A's had a beat writer for the Sacramento Bee named Sue Fornoff. And Sue was a very, very, very respected beat writer. She'd been around. She knew baseball. She understood the game. She knew the players. I shouldn't even have to say all that. Like, she was just a good baseball beat writer. It didn't matter man, woman. She was good. She was respected. She was high quality. Dave Kingman, however, never saw it that way. For example, when Kingman hit his 400th career home run while he was with the A's, he wouldn't talk to the media unless Sue Fornoff walked away. And I have to say, if you were a member of the Oakland A's writing community back then, and you let that happen, and you didn't defend her, and you didn't walk away with her, like, fuck you. That's some serious bullshit. Like, we in the media, we need to stand up for our colleagues. Seriously. Whether it's a baseball player bullying us, if it's someone from the White House bullying us, we need to stand up for our colleagues. It's required. Anyway, that happens to Sue Fornoff. But now we're in Kansas City. It's June 24th, 1986. And Sue Fornoff is in the press box in the stadium in Kansas City. And she receives a box delivered to her in the press box. And she opens a box and she takes off a cover. And there's some tissue paper in there. And it is a rat. And there's a tag attached to it that said, "My name is Sue." Dave Kingman sent her a live rat in a box in the press box. And if you think like Sue Fornoff, like, you know, screamed or cried or blah, blah, or nothing, no. She looked at it, put the lid back on, knew exactly who the fuck it was. It was Dave Kingman sending her a rat. After the game, she goes into the clubhouse and Dave Kingman is talking shit to her. "Oh, do you need tissues? Blah, blah, blah. Are you going to cry?" It's just, again, in all my years covering sports, it's one of the biggest asshole moves ever by a freaking Neanderthal. And amazingly, the A's almost did nothing. They didn't suspend Dave Kingman. They didn't give him a lecture. They didn't even apologize to the writer. They just kind of, "Oh, boys will be boys." And you know this thing. And that's what these guys had to deal with. And I got to say, Tony Kornheiser of the Washington Post the next day kind of nailed it when he said, "Dave Kingman, one of the emptier heads in pro sports, is in the news again, this time for sending a live rat to Susan Fornoff of the Sacramento Bee. What a zany guy Kingman is. It's hard to believe he doesn't have his own network show. The rat thing is such a hoot, almost as funny as when Kingman dumped a bucket of ice on a reporter from the Daily Herald. If you know me, Kingman said, you know I'm a practical jokester. And this guy just sucked. He just sucked. And at the end of the 86 season, even though he had 35 home runs and was still a very viable major league player and had a shot at 500 home runs and kind of weirdly a chance at the Hall of Fame, the Oakland A's released Dave Kingman. He signed a minor league deal with the San Francisco Giants, never made it back to the majors, and has kind of vanished. And again, I want to say, and I think it's important, for all I know, Dave Kingman nowadays is this enlightened, deep thinker who's reading Tolstoy and thinking about betterment of the world and is concerned about climate change and considers Gloria Steinem to be one of the, like, who knows? And I'm giving him that grace that maybe this was just a long time ago and this was an immature man who needed time and space and to be away from the spotlight. But during the course of his career, Dave Kingman truly was just a pain in the ass. He was rude. He was mean. He was indifferent. He was callous. And to me, his legacy isn't as Kong, one of the great home run hitters of all time. It's the douchebag who sent a woman reporter just trying to do her job, a rat in a box, and now has to live with that for the rest of his life. And whether that bothers him or not, I don't know, but it most definitely should. That's a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Please leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear more about, or if there's a particular sports figure you'd like to learn more of. Please do me a favor, make sure to like and subscribe, and also follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Also, a reminder, my new book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, is out and available wherever you buy books. Thank you for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We'll see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.